We talked about it last week, and the Bulls are in the midst of a really tough stretch. First two games of that stretch didn't go great. I'd say back-to-back losses to start, and I think one of them was avoidable. We're going to dive all the way into it on this episode of Believe in Bulls here on the Believe Network, presented by BetOnline.ag. I am your host, Nick Schultz, alongside my co-host, former Bulls bench Bob member and Tennessee Vol C.J. Watson. C.J., how we doing? Happy Halloween. We're recording this on Halloween.
I know. Happy Halloween. I don't really celebrate it, but everyone be safe out there.
I don't really either. As you see, the decorations around here are nothing. Now,
Right.
Christmas sweater season is coming. I
Right.
mean, there's a radio station in Chicago playing Christmas music tomorrow, November 1st.
Yeah.
So I don't do that. But happy Halloween to everybody. Be safe trick or treating tonight. We've got some tricks and treats for you on the show today. But we got to tell you about our friends at Bet Online before we get started. Basketball is back, and Bet Online remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup information, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. And as your continued source for all sports wagering info, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events, whether that's NFL, NBA, NHL, MMA, tennis, boxing, even golf. 1 week from today, tomorrow, Tuesday, November 1st, there's 1 week until college basketball starts. That's my favorite time of year. Bet
Mhm.
on all of that at BetOnline. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use your promo code BELIEVE to receive your rewards. That's BLEAV. Get that 50% welcome bonus at BetOnline. That's where the game starts. And we have an official t-shirt of the show, Jordan Pippen 98, The Last Dance. A lot of good stuff at shop.believe.com, but we have a t-shirt for the show. Jordan Pippen 98, The Last Dance. Election season is coming up fast. It's a campaign style t-shirt if you want to start a conversation heading into November 8th, which is going to be a big day here in the state of Illinois. So back-to-back losses to start this stretch for the Bulls. Lost to the Spurs, 129-124. I tweeted this afterward. That felt avoidable. We'll talk about that in a second. Then second half of back-to-back, they played the Philadelphia 76ers. Final score of that one, the Sixers 114, Bulls 109. Nikola Vucevic looked great in that game. But last week on the show, on Friday's episode, we talked about this is not going to be easy, this little stretch the Bulls had. They got 7 games over a really tight period of time, a bunch of back-to-backs. Not the best way to start. I mean, we saw good signs, but still, back-to-back losses, not great.
Yeah, not great at all. I think we just got to learn how to close out games down the stretch. I think maybe if we get some stops, that'll give us some confidence on the offensive end. But when you really need a stop and you can't get a stop, then that puts more added pressure on you on the offensive end. So if the defense can pick it up a little bit, I think we can close those games out in the end.
Yeah, and I mean, they're starting in a hole, it seems like.
Yeah.
I see a lot of these double-digit deficits and having to come back, and they actually took a lead over Philadelphia before, the cream rose to the top in a way, and Joel Embiid hit that dagger three. And I know the last 2-minute report didn't say it. DeMar DeRozan got fouled in the last 10, 15 seconds there. The last
Right.
2-minute report said, no, you've got to be straight up.
Right.
And he
Yeah.
wasn't, he wasn't straight up. And they talked about it on the broadcast. But I mean, my attitude is you can't put yourself in a position to let the refs dictate the game.
For sure.
But I mean, they were also beat up. We'll talk about the injuries too. But, 2 straight losses in a stretch like this, how do you kind of bounce back from that? If you're in this tight window, a lot of games in a close period of time, what do you have to do to bounce back?
You just take it one day at a time, try to get healthy is really the main key. Try to get everyone back. And like I said, just trying to get one win at a time. That's the biggest thing in the NBA is you start with one, that builds your confidence, builds the bench's confidence, the starters and everybody, and everyone else will be happy.
I talked about that Spurs game, and the Spurs always scare me because my exact quote was, I will never count out a Greg Popovich team. And
Right.
you saw what happened. This Spurs team, they're really young. I think they're the youngest in the league, if not their second or third youngest, but I'm pretty sure they're like the number one youngest team. They looked really good, and we talked about it before we started recording. When Keldon Johnson's making every single three, they're really tough to beat. But a 129-124 game, that goes back to what I've been talking about, and you talked about a little bit to start. The defense, that perimeter
Mhm.
defense, especially when a guy's torching you like Keldon Johnson.
Yeah.
And that's an area that's the type of games where that defensive issue is going to come to the forefront, and that's something they need to shore up going forward.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, if they can't get the defense straight, the offense will never, be able to pair itself. So stopping guards in this league is hard and tough, but you got to take on that challenge every night and just try to make it tough on players like himself and the other superstar players that are going to come against every night, and just try to make it tough on them, like I said, and hopefully they miss.
And there was a milestone in that Spurs game. DeMar DeRozan reached 20,000 points, and it was
Mhm.
very appropriate that he did that in San Antonio with Pop on the other sideline. It was a really cool moment that Pop called timeout right
Yeah.
after the bucket so they could honor him and everything. That was a veteran move, classy move. On the broadcast, Adam Amin and Stacey King talked about how DeMar DeRozan is a future Hall of Famer reaching
Mhm.
20,000 points. Because you think of some of the names that have done it. He's only the 50th player in the 76 years of the league to hit 20,000 points.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I agree with Adam and Stacey. Do you agree that DeMar DeRozan is a future Hall of Famer?
For sure, yeah, I think so easily. He's probably easily one of the best offensive players we have in this game. Footwork wise, mid-range game, he still doesn't really fall out to the 3-point line, but he can make it here and there. But the mid-range game is just so lethal. And like I said, he's done it in every stop. He's done it in Toronto, San Antonio, and obviously Chicago now. And to do it in San Antonio, where a place he played in for a Hall of Fame coach like Pop, I'm sure it's just he felt great, and is one on his bucket list.
As someone who likes the older school basketball, like I think back to the older days of like even Larry Bird and Dr. J. Obviously, I mean, I'm 24 years old. That was clearly before
Hmm.
my time. But, I look at those highlights. I love that style where they're getting inside. It's not all about the 3-point game. I know the game now, pace
Yeah,
and space, spread the floor, shoot the three. The fact that DeMar DeRozan is as dominant as he is for so long, and he's still perfecting the mid-range game, and yeah, he shoots the three now and again, but that's not the biggest part of his game. To me, I think that's really cool. And having him reach that milestone with his style of play in this day and age, it's just, I can't script a better story, honestly.
yeah, for sure. It just shows you all the work he probably puts in the gym in the summertime.
Oh, we've heard
Early
about that.
mornings. Yeah, early mornings, late at night. And I'm sure that he is, like I said, just a gym rat, and that's what that comes from. That scoring 20,000 points doesn't come easy, especially against some of the best players in the world, best defenders in the world. He's going to see every night. So I mean, just a applaud to him and all the effort that he's put in, the work he's put in and day out. And a lot of people probably counting him out, said he wasn't going to make it a long time, but he's still here and still working.
I just want to repeat that stat again. He is the 50th player in 76 years in the league. Now, think of some of these players that have come through, like obviously Michael, LeBron,
Right.
Larry. They're all in that club. But think of some of these names that have gone through that didn't hit 20,000 points. DeMar is
Right.
number 50 in
Yeah.
76 years. Like that's amazing to me. And in that Spurs game too, there were a couple injuries. Ayo
Hmm.
Dosunmu, he took a knee to the head, which he was fine. He cleared concussion protocol and came back, but he missed the Sixers game with a chest bruise. Then Andre Drummond took a big fall. He hurt his shoulder. They both missed that 76ers game. And I'm going to talk more about Andre Drummond here in a second. But injuries like that, when you got a back to back, and then you got another back to back coming, and then another back to back coming, what do you do in that situation if you're on that team and you see guys getting hurt? Obviously, the mentality is next man up. But when
Yeah.
that happens, how does that affect you in game?
It kind of takes the breath out of you, but like you said, next man up. That's why we have a team of, four, I don't know how many players on the team, 14, 12, 15, something like that. But
Somewhere in there.
yeah, yeah. But everyone has his chance to be able to get on the court and show what they can do, what they've been working on, and try to get into the rotation. Obviously you don't want a player to get hurt, but things happen. This is a contact sport. So you gotta, like you said, next man up and try to get the win for the team and fill in that void.
And I think it helped too that Iowa and Andre Drummond, they came back, they were back in that game against San Antonio. And I still say that felt like a winnable game.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
don't know how else to put it. Like I tweeted it afterward. It felt avoidable because they had their opportunities,
Hmm.
and I mean, DeMar put up 30 points. No Zach LaVine because it was first half of back to back. We have talked at length about Zach LaVine and back to backs with that
Hmm.
knee. And I keep teasing. I'm full of teases today. We got more on Zach LaVine coming up too, because there's a lot. There's a lot there. There's a lot of people. I told you before we start. I gotta learn to stay out of Twitter mentions, but here I am. But that Spurs game, opportunities like that, I don't know. Those are the games even early in the year. I feel like when you have those opportunities, you gotta win. You've got to find a way to come through.
Yeah, you do, especially down the crunch. Like I said, crunch time, you got to find a way to get a stop or get a score. But most importantly, you got to try to find a way to get those wins on the road, especially against teams that are not, predicted to be in the playoffs. But you got to get those wins and really help your team as a young team like we have, and for their confidence.
And I feel bad too because I keep talking. I want to look big picture. This is really early in the year. I think we're only what 8 games into this thing. It's a long season.
Hmm.
82 games is a really long season. But when games like this, when you're a borderline playoff team, because I keep saying they're that border there, 6, 7 seed, I think is where I could see them being once again. That 7 seed is the play-in tournament. You want to avoid the play-in.
Right.
Games like that Spurs game, even early in the year, you've got to do it when it matters. And obviously later in the year is when it counts. But I don't want them digging themselves into a hole. And I mean, literally in games, they're digging themselves into a hole. But in the
Right.
standings too, you don't want to lose some of these close games.
Yeah, you definitely don't, because like I said, in the end of the year, like you said, in the big picture, these games like this San Antonio game will come back to haunt them. They could look back at this and say, "Hey, we could have won that game," and maybe a few more. But if you can dig yourself out of this hole now and get ahead in the standings, then that'll be better off in the end of the year.
Let's talk about the early deficits too, because I mean, 19-point deficit against Boston. They came back. It was
Yeah,
a 38-point swing. They won that game. That's not sustainable to
yeah,
keep
no,
doing that. They can't keep digging themselves into holes, especially against these top tier teams in the East. It's the old saying, it's cliche, it's coach speak. The cream rises to the top. You saw that in
Mhm.
Philadelphia, or I
Right.
guess Philadelphia was in Chicago, but you get my point. Against Philadelphia, the cream rose to the top there. You saw, I mean, the Bulls weren't at full strength. Zach LaVine is not at 100%. I don't think that's a stretch to say that. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to try and diagnose him, but he's
Right.
even said he's not as explosive. So
Hmm.
early deficits like this, how do you fix that? Like, how do you not dig yourself into a hole in these games?
You just try to get off to a quick start. Got to bring the energy. But like you said, they cannot get down, 19 points, 20 points, especially against good teams and think they're going to be able to come back, regardless if you're at home or away. When you're at home, obviously you have a little more energy. The fans are there rooting for you, trying to get you back in the game. But every time they're not going to get you back in the game. You got to find a way to bring the energy, bring the consistency offensively and defensively to really either stay level with these teams or at least get a lead.
Yeah, and there was another game there, and it wasn't the Spurs game. I forget what it was when they gave it looked like they were going to lose it. And
Yeah.
then we talked that was the game last week. The bench came through, they fought it
Right.
off, they won the game. But I don't like these stretches like that. And I'm not gonna blame coaching. I'm not gonna blame the players. This could just be early
Mhm.
in the season. I mean, we're not even 10 games into an 82 game season. Maybe this is just getting back in the groove, and the schedule hasn't been friendly. That doesn't help.
Yeah, yeah. It might be team chemistry, a little bit of everything, conditioning, guys trying to work their way back into shape, and getting their legs underneath them. So could be a mixture of a whole bunch of things. But right now we just got to find the team chemistry and try to find a way to win.
That's something Stacy says on the broadcast too, talking about the schedule, is that maybe the something happened with the schedulers, because
Mhm.
the Bulls have had a lot of back to backs for a league that's
Yeah.
trying to cut down on back to backs, and it eases up. When you look ahead in the schedule, they'll have a couple days in between games. It'll balance out. It's just a brutal start. And it doesn't help that your best player is off to a slow start and clearly isn't 100%. Zach LaVine's not finishing at the rim like he wants to. He's said that.
Mhm.
That Philadelphia game, if he plays what he's capable of, they win that game. I mean, it was a 5-point game. Vooch played well. DeRozan played well. What do we make of Zach LaVine's slow start to the year here? I'm not ready to go in panic mode like I was last week. Not ready to do that again.
All right.
But I mean, I just think this is just something you have to look at here. We're not 10 games in, and can he shake this? Can he get back to 100%? What do you make of everything?
I think he definitely can get back to 100%. Like I said, it's just the way the scheduling goes, getting more practices under his belt also, and probably conditioning too. Just like I said, just getting his legs underneath him. That comes with confidence. It comes with making shots and also winning. And if they win some games, then his confidence might be a little higher.
And everyone points to, and I pointed to the number last week, 200 million. You're paying him 200 million. Why is he not coming through? Well, it doesn't matter how much you're paying him. He's not at 100%, but that's an investment you make with his potential, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm sick and tired of hearing people throw out the
Hmm.
number that your highest paid player didn't play well against one of the best teams in the division, and you lost the game. Like, I'm tired of hearing about the contract. Like,
Yeah.
they paid him what they paid him. He's clearly your top player. You invested in him. He was here through the dark years of the rebuild. He was here through Jim Boylan, whose second straight episode I brought up Jim Boylan. I swore I wouldn't do that. But he was here through those years. Now he's here. Quit talking about Zach LaVine's contract already. Just
Yeah.
focus on the play.
Yeah, that's all you can do. I mean, people are always going to talk about the money, obviously, because people can see that how much money players make. So they always compare that to their play. So I think just for him, like I said, it's just getting his confidence back, getting back in the rhythm and the groove of things. Then also just to get the team chemistry with his teammate, hopefully through practices but more so through games and finding his rhythm.
Well, and this is one of those things too, and this is the disclaimer I'm putting on every single show. I think the Bulls are obviously not at 100% because I don't know if you've heard Lonzo Ball is hurt, so they're
Mhm.
not at 100% here. So you get the big three right now. Your big three:
Right.
Vucevic, DeRozan, Levine. They've got to play at a high level against these top teams. So the fact that one of those guys, Levine, didn't light it up necessarily, didn't play like his usual game, that's why they lose that game. And I know you can't necessarily count on all three of those guys having lights out games at the same time. You cannot put all
Right.
your eggs in that basket,
Right.
especially when you're shorthanded with Dosunmu and Drummond out. I think to me, those guys have a little extra pressure on them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're the top paid players and the best players on the team. So for sure, they have a lot more pressure on them to win games and execute down the stretch and execute every game. But I think that's where the next man mentality comes up. If someone's not playing well, someone off the bench comes along and plays well, brings some energy, or someone in the starting five who doesn't normally get a lot of shots, find some way to get some offensive rebounds, get some extra tip ins, get to the free throw line, score in transition, things of that nature.
And one of those guys coming off the bench and playing really well is Andre Drummond. The stat line against the Spurs, he came off the bench, 22
Mm,
minutes, 17 points, 14 rebounds. Those are starter numbers off the bench.
for sure.
I really like what I'm seeing out of Andre Drummond. Like, I knew this was a good signing from a depth standpoint. Wasn't
Mm.
quite sure, we talked about this too last week. Okay, he's been a starter in the league coming off the bench. Is there going to be an adjustment there? I don't see any. I think he's playing a really good role on this team. I think Arturas Karnisovas has pulled a rabbit out of his hat. I know it's early to say that, but so
Yeah.
far, even missing the 76ers game, he has been a great addition to this group.
Yeah, when you can get a veteran like him and a starter in this league to come off the bench and play against another bench player, I'm going to put my bet, on that starter. I'm coming in and being productive and playing well, and he's just doing his job, scoring, rebounding, defending the rim, setting picks, rolling. I haven't watched many of their games, but I don't know if he's shooting many threes yet. I
He's
saw
shot a
last year.
couple.
Yeah, he's shot a couple. He's improving his range, so he's definitely um, getting his range out there. So I think that's good for him just to always, just get better. And that's what he's doing.
As a former bench mobber, what is that like having a guy who started in the league, has the experience starting, then is coming off the bench and bringing that veteran presence? What does that do for that bench group?
Just gives them stability. They know there's someone there in that role who can kind of calm them down when they need to be calmed down. But also, you're just going to get production. He's going to be consistent every night. You know what you're going to get out of him, and you know that he's going to be there every night for you whenever you need him.
And he's efficient too. The efficiency is
Yeah,
amazing. And having that come off the bench, he's not going to start on this team. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
the days of two bigs, I feel like are going way in the
Long
dodo. Like,
gone. Yeah,
yeah, I
those
mean,
are
I
done.
would like to see that. Don't get me wrong. I would love to see Vucevic and Drummond in the starting lineup. But that's not where the league is going. We talk again
Right.
the pace and space, stretch the floor. You need guys who can shoot the three. But I
Mhm.
think having that platoon there of Vucevic, who is a really good offensive player and can shoot the three, then you change the style and you go with a guy who can crash the board, who's not
Right.
known as a shot blocker. He's still blocking shots, and Andre Drummond. Oh, and he can score in volume. To
Right.
me, that's a really good recipe for success. It's just a matter of getting the rest of the guys playing at that level too. But I think maybe they can even feed off the energy that Andre Drummond brings in some of these close games as the season goes along.
Yeah, for sure. I think that energy he brings off the bench is it's infectious. Every team needs it, especially a young team like ours that to have these young guys come in and play with high energy every night, even on back to backs. If you just come with the energy, that can solve a lot of your issues. And that's the big thing with that young players may not know or understand that just coming out with the energy and being talking, being everywhere on the court, that just makes up for a lot of things.
And we talked about the stretch last week. We made our predictions. I said maybe 5-2. Well, they're already 0-2, so they got to win the next 5 games for my prediction to be right. And I'm kind of chalking it off right now because that Spurs loss, man, that put a bad taste in my mouth. But back to backs like this, we kind of I talked about it a little bit. I want to talk about it a little more. When you're going in here, you're bouncing back. You know what the schedule has in front of you. If you're Billy Donovan and you're in that locker room and you've lost these 2 games and they were both 5-point games, single digit losses, what's your message to that team?
Those games are winnable games. We just got to learn how to execute down the stretch. We got to get some stops to help our offense. And I feel like once you get stops, that's going to give our offense more confidence. And this game coming up Tuesday is a winnable game. Brooklyn's struggling, and you want to play, and it's a TV game. Like when I was playing, I feel like it was so long ago. When I was playing, we would always get up for these TV games because not have a lot of TV games on the schedule, but when you do, you're always playing against other great players and great teams, and you want to perform because everyone's watching. So that's another added incentive for them to come out and win this game, especially at home.
And we talk about Brooklyn struggling, like we kind of put that as, oh, they're struggling. When we say they're struggling, They're 1-5 going into
Right.
play on Monday, and they're going to be on the second half of a back-to-back when the
Right.
Bulls play them Tuesday night because Brooklyn's got Indiana tonight. We're recording this on Monday. That's tonight, so they're on the second half of a back-to-back, and they're struggling at 1-5. This feels like an opportunity. I mean, that Spurs game was an opportunity too, but this feels like a chance to, okay, you've beaten Boston, you've beaten
Right.
Miami. If you can beat Brooklyn, and I know the record is the old thing in football, you are what your record says you are.
Yeah.
They've
Yeah.
still got Kevin Durant, they've still got Kyrie Irving. Yes, they have Ben Simmons too, but I'm not going to talk about Ben Simmons right now. But they've got dudes.
Yeah.
You can do this on that type of stage. I think you I think you get fired up for this game, like you said.
Yeah, you have to get fired up. And like I said, this is a winnable game. And the last two losses were also winnable, but just gotta learn how to execute down the stretch. And I'm sure if this game is close down the stretch, it's gonna be, who's gonna execute the best and more efficient. So hopefully the Bulls can do that on Tuesday night.
And the fact that even if they were 5-1, I'd say this game's an opportunity with that back to back in there. And for the Bulls, they're going to be that team that the other team's thinking it's an opportunity because they've got the second half of another back to
Right.
back on Wednesday against Charlotte.
Yeah.
And Charlotte, to me, I mean, they've got some injuries. They're still a solid group. I don't think LaMelo Ball is back for them, which that bodes well. But I
Yeah.
mean, that just adds to it. Then you've got Boston again, Toronto. Then things will lighten up a little bit. New Orleans is in there, Orlando. So you got about a week in here that it's going
Yeah.
to be up and down. But I think you just got to stay the course. And like you said, if you get an opportunity, you've got to take it. San Antonio, you had your opportunities to win that game
Right.
and you didn't. You've got to get over that hump.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like it only starts with one win, Once they get that one win, especially at home, they can go on the road and hopefully that'll carry over to Charlotte and they can get two in a row. And if you get two in a row, keep going to 3 and 4 and so on.
Absolutely. And we keep again, I want to say it again. Big picture is what I'm looking at. Yes, you were only 7, 8 games into this thing.
Right.
Get yourself in position to be in position. Because last year they made
Right.
the playoffs because they were the number 1 seed until Lonzo went down in January and things kind of went downhill. But get yourself in a good position so you have that margin of error. And right now you got all the margin of error in the world because you're only 8 games in. But
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't want to see them get too far down in those standings. And I told you I wasn't going to look at the standings seriously yet. I don't want to start standings watching it. Oh wow, the Bulls are 3-4. They're the 10 seed at the season ended today. They're 7 games in. I don't care
Right.
what seed they are right now, especially when Milwaukee's 5-1 and Cleveland's 5-1. Like I'm not gonna even think about that.
Right.
Don't be down where Brooklyn and Orlando are at 1-5 and 1-6. Just keep yourself in the middle there. That way you can put yourself in position.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. You always want to be in position to either hopefully, if they do have to make a trade that can help them even more, push them over the hump. But if not, stick with this team and just ride it out. But you got to put yourself in position, just like you said, to be in that conversation to even, but you got to win games at the end of the day.
Yeah,
win games and execute down the stretch. I think that's the biggest thing.
it's the old joke in college basketball because I'm starting to get in college basketball mode. I'm excited. You want to put
Mhm.
yourself in position to be in position.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like at least the first third of the season is in position to be in position, then put yourself in position and you can go from there. I think you can kind of break it down that way. Maybe that's an oversimplification. That's something we can talk about on Thursday or Friday too.
Mhm.
But there's ways to look at this, especially when you've got a team who's on this borderline. Last year
Right.
I was gung ho. It's a playoff team. Now I'm like, well, maybe not. Maybe they're going to fall into the play in because you've got these other teams playing at such a high level. And you
Yeah.
never know what's going to happen with some of these trades. Like, maybe the Lakers are going to throw a bag for Miles Turner, who basically asked the Lakers to trade for him. Oh, by the way, the Lakers won a game. What'd you think?
All right.
What'd you think
About
of that?
time. Yeah. They're finally on getting the win column.
Yeah, it is about time. And all the stuff about Russ and everything. They won a game. Okay, everything's
Right.
fine. No,
Right.
everything's not fine. And maybe they're going to throw Indiana all the draft capital in the world, and
Right.
maybe some of these teams will, maybe they'll make some moves. But the fact that Philadelphia is down there at 3-4, and the Knicks are 3-3, Atlanta is 4-2. Atlanta is one of those teams. I think they're going to be a really good group this year. I just really
Yeah.
like what DeJounte Murray brings with Trae Young's skill set. I
Yeah.
think the two of them together, that's a lethal combination.
Yeah, they're going to be a tough out, especially the way Trae Young is shooting the ball, the way DeJounte Murray is getting to the basket and finishing. I like their whole team. They're going to be a tough out. Whoever gets them in the playoffs.
I mean, even if it was just Trae on that team, I feel like we'd be talking about them being a tough out. But then you add in a guy like DeJounte, who was on that Spurs team that beat the Bulls the other night. Imagine if they had DeJounte Murray in that game.
Right.
This conversation is completely different. I
Yeah,
feel like
yeah.
they're I feel like, and I know a couple Spurs fans from working on three, they live in San Antonio. They were not happy the Spurs won that game. They wanted to lose.
Mhm.
They wanted to tank for
Right.
Wembanyama.
Tank.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
they're tanking. That's what I'm talking about with the Bears too. That's a conversation I've had with a few
Yeah.
people is tank, tank, tank. And I'm glad we're not talking about the Bulls tanking because I hated doing that. I hated sitting
Yeah.
here saying the Bulls need to tank for lottery odds. And now I don't know what their situation is with the draft pick next year. I don't, as of right now, I don't think they have a draft pick. So we don't even have to worry about that. I
Right.
just worry about winning games right now. And that's what I want them to do against Brooklyn and Charlotte these next 2 days. We'll reconvene here on Thursday for Friday's episode. And hopefully we're talking about a couple better games because we talk about my word is opportunities.
Right.
2 games, 2 good opportunities this week. Make the most of it.
Yeah, hopefully they learn from their last 2 games, and make the most of these missed opportunities, and just try to get these wins. But like I said, just one win at a time. It starts with on Tuesday, and they can get that one, then build for the next game.
Yeah, and that's the best way to put it. One win at a time. It's cliche, it's coach speak, but
Yeah,
it's what you have to do
right,
in a stretch like this. And we're gonna come back here on Thursday for Friday's episode. We'll recap those games. We're gonna look again. I want to keep looking big picture because I feel like we're at that point. We just need to look long term. And I'm gonna keep throwing the disclaimer out there. Lonzo Ball is not back. This team is not at 100%. So far, they've shown some good signs. I just want to see a little bit more. That way, we feel a little bit more comfortable when Lonzo comes back. So we'll be back here. Another episode dropping on Friday. It's a wrap for today's episode of Believe in Bulls on the Believe Network, presented to you as always by our friends at Bet Online. Use that promo code, a 50% welcome bonus. That's really good with NBA in full swing, NFL, college hoops. You've got a lot at Bet Online to bet on if you want. Also, don't forget to buy our shirt, Jordan Pippen 98. There's a lot of good stuff at shop.believe.com as well. CJ, another fun episode. We're going to do this again later in the week. And again, we're going to recap 2 more games. We got 3 more coming up after that. We got a lot of fun coming up.
it's gonna be a big week for the Bulls. I can feel it.
It will be. It's going to be a big week, and with a big stage, no less. We'll see
Right.
everybody back here on Friday. Don't forget to subscribe to Apple, Spotify. We're on YouTube now on the Believe YouTube channel. That's where, if you're watching us on the Believe YouTube channel right now, we're here every show. We've got a lot more fun coming up. So thank you everybody for listening. See you back here on Friday.
Appreciate it. Thanks.